You're watching Chillyboy Productions. My name is Larry Chillyboy Chilson, and this is the latest in my Pride series of movie reviews. And today we are talking about the 2009 film A Single Man. And here to help me review that film, I am joined by Shawn from Lost in the Reel. Hi, Shawn.
Hi, Larry. It's nice to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this series this year.
Yes, I'm so happy to be a part of it. And this is one of my favorite films, so I'm
Ooh.
excited.
A Single Man is a 2009 drama directed by Tom Ford following a man who is in mourning after the loss of his longtime partner, in which he learns to rediscover himself. Confession time, I had never seen A Single Man until preparing to do this review. So I'm actually very happy you chose it, seeing as it's one of your favorite films of all time.
Larry, I am shook right now.
I know. There's a few. That's part of the reason why I like doing this Pride series is there are some classic LGBTQIA films that just slipped through the cracks. I didn't get to watch coming up. And so this gives me an opportunity to see them all if I can and talk about them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I will say, I love Nocturnal Animals. I think that film went a little underappreciated, underrecognized for sure, and is not talked about really. So I was very curious to see Tom Ford's directorial debut when it came to A Single Man. And it certainly did not disappoint. But you mentioned it's one of your favorite films. Want to tell us your connection and history when it comes to A Single Man?
Yeah, so I just remember hearing a little bit of Oscar buzz about it. And I had asked a couple of friends, I was like, would you be interested in seeing this gay movie? They were all like, sure, yeah, we'll go with you to go see this gay movie. But anyways, all of us ended up loving it. And it's just a movie that stuck with me. Because it's so haunting. The entire film is like a living poem almost. So it's just, it has a special place in my heart, definitely.
Well, it certainly had some great performances. One of possibly Colin Firth's best performances that I've seen him give. It's interesting having Supernova just released earlier this year and then going back to revisit something like A Simple Man, and I guess getting to contrast. These two characters are obviously in very different places in their lives, but it's always interesting, I guess, to see those parallels. But he's fantastic. We get a young Nicholas Hoult in here. We have the fabulous, as always, Julianne Moore here as well. Now, what was the Oscar buzz for this film, if you remember?
Yeah, I just remember people were talking about the film, but they were mostly talking about Colin Firth's performance. And I completely agree with you that this is one of his best. I do wish that he had won. I wish he had won for it. I remember everyone talking about how wonderful his performance was. So when I went into it, I was just expecting a great Colin Firth performance. I didn't really know a lot about the film. So when the film was also just as amazing, it was a nice surprise.
So how do you feel about Tom Ford as a director? Because obviously fashion icon, fashion mogul, that's what he's most known for in the general population. But how do you feel about him as a film director?
Like you, I also love Nocturnal Animals, and I have no idea how that film has been forgotten like it has. I think it's a brilliant movie. I think he's fantastic. He has a visual eye, and he knows how to make things look beautiful. And he certainly does that in both of these films. I would love to see what he does next. So I definitely am a fan of him as a director.
Yeah, he's very selective in directing. I mean, this is what, two films and all of this time since he made his debut. But you could certainly see it, especially, I guess, working my way backwards, watching Nocturnal Animals and then seeing this film, you can see his style all over it. And
Oh, yeah.
that's something so impressive for a director that only has 2 films under their belt, to be able to watch something and just know, like, oh, yeah, this is Reed's Tom Ford all over it. From the
Yeah.
fashion, obviously, is stunning. Everything
Mm.
Julianne Moore wears, or I guess doesn't wear as well as Nicholas Hoult. I loved that little sweater ensemble that he was wearing for the majority of the film.
Yes.
It looked amazing. And of course, Colin Firth in his suits, very distinguished throughout the film.
Hmm.
But more than that, he has a very interesting visual direction style. It pushes the ground of art. And I think maybe that could be a little bit jarring for more casual viewers. I could see it as a little pretentious, possibly,
Mm.
but it makes for a really interesting viewing experience, particularly as we get into the later parts of A Single Man. A lot of the visual direction and where he takes the film itself, I think, is really stunning and helps to tell this story. But like you, I can't wait for him to decide to direct a 3rd film, whatever that
Exactly.
might be.
In 10 years.
Yeah, sometime. Well, how do you feel about the story itself, the script, this idea of mourning and loss obviously heavily weighs over the entire film?
I think it's a beautiful script. I think it's a quiet script. There's not a, every word means something, and I love that about it. I know that Tom Ford worked very closely with Christopher Isherwood's lover, our partner, when writing this script. So, and Christopher Isherwood, it was the writer of the novel. So he definitely wanted to make it as close to the novel as possible, and I appreciate that he did that. And I don't know, this movie, like I said before, it's just so haunting to me. It's very melancholy and somber, but there's also just the perfect amount of hope in there as well, which I love.
I mean, obviously, any film that literally has somebody practicing how they're going to shoot themselves in the head, which position is best, and like where in the house is best. I mean, it goes there, and it goes to
Yeah.
some pretty dark places, and really puts you into the atmosphere of what this character is feeling at the time.
Mhm.
But particularly as we move forward, and I think a lot having to do, obviously, which I think is a big reason he's here, through the Nicholas Hoult character, getting to kind of get that like new inspiration and a new perspective on life in many ways, I think is really nice. And then we get this pretty open ending. It's definitely not,
Yes.
it's an open for interpretation style ending on this one. So
Yeah.
do you think it makes a difference in this day and age? So much of the discussion comes down to representation behind the camera as much as in front of the camera. So obviously when it comes to in front of the camera talent in this film, pretty sure they all identify as straight, but in this circumstance, everybody pretty much behind the camera
Mhm.
identifies as LGBTQ plus in some way or fashion, as you said, from the source material, the person who wrote that, to the screenplay itself, and to the direction. So do you
Yeah.
think having that much experience coming from within the community was an asset to the film?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how you feel about this, but I am okay with Colin Firth taking on, a role like this. I think obviously because he's in Supernova as well, he has a heart for these type of stories. But I do think it was really important to have Tom Ford as someone, a part of the community, to definitely give his experience to what happened. And I love in the film how they keep talking about being invisible, and how like in the 1960s, how they're talking about one thing, but you can also attribute that to the LGBTQ community as well. So I think little things like that are added into this film, it was important for an LGBTQ storyteller to be doing it.
That's a debate. I think probably that's more present now than it was in the 2000s decade, when we had Brokeback Mountain kicking us off was the first big one to really set things off all the way up through something like this. I think that the acting performances and actors who are in front of the camera representing people gay or queer is definitely more of a conversation now than it was then.
Yes.
And one I'm personally still divided on. I
Right.
understand why people want actual gay actors and queer identifying actors in these roles, but in many ways, I personally feel it's more important that we get screenwriters and directors who are part of the community, because they're the ones ultimately making a lot of the decisions and telling the story.
Absolutely.
So I don't know how you feel about that, or if you'd even want to talk about that. But
Yeah, Larry, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Of course, I want representation in general, but I think it's really important in telling a story like this that we did have an LGBTQ storyteller, like I said. And I definitely think we are seriously lacking in the behind the scenes department, as well as in front, but behind the scenes, especially with LGBTQ storytellers. And it's sad to me, but hopefully it'll keep getting better.
yeah, in particular, I think I don't want queer actors, which unfortunately they often do, to get pigeonholed into only playing gay characters. And so
Exactly.
I think it has to kind of be fluid. Now, in saying that, obviously a lot of LGBTQ roles have went to straight identifying actors
Yeah.
throughout the years, and there's always something to be said about, you know, straight guys getting praised for going gay for film. And if an
Yeah.
LGBT actor was in that role, they wouldn't have gotten the same praise, or they wouldn't have gotten overlooked. But that's a whole deeper issue
It
that
really is.
is all part of this representation
Mhm.
business.
It really is.
So are there any aspects to the film that you think maybe weren't the strongest, or moments where you were like, okay, this is definitely a debut directorial effort, or things you would have liked to see tweaked just a bit?
Um, That's a really good question. I'm trying to like think back on when I first saw it, like what that like my first time seeing it, what my eyes were like then. I definitely think for a debut feature, this is such a refined piece of work. So I think his visual eye is there. I think I think his screenplay is incredible. But I think maybe as a actor's director, he could have possibly been better. With Colin Firth, it's Colin Firth, and he's, you know, giving
Yeah.
an amazing performance. He doesn't really, you know, need a director to guide him. I think with Nicholas Holt's performance and possibly the gentleman that he meets, that's like James Dean. I feel like Tom
Oh
Ford maybe
yeah.
could have gotten a more authentic performance out of the two of them. So maybe that's my only thing that could have been better. But I mean, I once again, this is one of my favorite films, so it's hard to find any negatives about it.
Certainly. I definitely think you brought him up. That little James Dean guy moment, I almost wish we could have gotten a little bit more there. This film
Yes.
is under 2 hours, so of course, again in 2020, that's like nothing. That's a
Right.
short. That's a short drama these days. But I think his character had a really interesting backstory and had like a really interesting, like just quick moment that it was like,
Yeah.
oh, I maybe would have liked to spend more time with him. It's not his story per se, but he mattered enough to be brought into the narrative here, and maybe it would have been
Right.
nice to expand on that a little bit. I particularly loved that scene with him and Julianne Moore, though. Her
100%.
her like speech to him and her whole character is just really amazing. And I thought, once again, particularly given the time, the 60s, it was a really impactful kind of way of viewing how the LGBT community was thought of, even
Yeah.
by people supportive, even by people who loved them and were on board with what was happening.
Mhm.
Just kind of that time.
I think you bring up two great points. Number one, the James Dean character. I do agree with you. I feel like was almost like a story that was started and never finished. And I wonder if maybe something was cut out because they thought it was too long. But he was a really interesting character, and I really do love that scene, despite some of my misgivings with his performance. But the Julianne Moore character, I honestly, every time I watch it, I'm like, I want more.
Yeah.
Because them two together, they have such fantastic chemistry, and you can almost see that history in both of their performances. And yeah, I love it. I could have a whole single man two with just Julianne Moore and Colin Firth the whole time.
Well, did you have any final thoughts on A Single Man for this review?
Yeah, I hope if anyone hasn't seen this film that they do check it out. It is on Netflix, which I was very happy to see that it was on there. And I just think that this is such a beautiful film. It really transcends, any genre, and there's so much that you can get out of it. And I really hope people do seek it out.
Wonderful. I echo those sentiments. If you're looking for a film, as we said earlier, that is not only about the community, but also directed, written from source material, all from within the community, this is certainly one of the better options available to watch now, currently on streaming. So once again, thank you so much, Shawn, for joining me to come on and discuss A Single Man. Why don't you let everybody who might be watching know where they can find you?
Yeah, so my channel is Lost in the Reel, and I just basically do what you do, Larry. Movie reviews and collabs and rankings, all that fun stuff. I do television as well, so if you love what Larry does, definitely come and check me out too.
Perfect. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead, click that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on all of my latest videos. Also, let us know, have you seen A Single Man? If you have, what are your thoughts? Do you love it as much as Shawn certainly loves it? Let us know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit either one of us up on Twitter. Also, all of Lost in the Reel links will be in the description below, so make sure to head on over and show Shawn some love. I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.